To end this video series, let me begin with bad news. Transformation doesn't happen in a moment. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and deep digging. It takes incredible effort, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's painful. It's confusing, but it's worth it. You see, transformation is not a moment, but a movement. It's a discipline. It's a path paved in toil, in struggle, in grace, and in patience. Patience. When I think of the word patience, I think of gardening. And here's the reason why. I was blessed with what you call a black thumb. You know, some people have a green thumb. I have a black thumb. It's amazing how no matter what it is, I can find a way to kill it if I plant it. Whether we're talking aloe trees or even just the grass in my lawn. And so, because we wanted to have a garden, we decided it was best not to leave it up to me or my wife, but to have a community garden. So we all gathered our community and we were hosting it in our yard, and all of us came back, about 5 to 7 of us, one Saturday morning, and we began to dig. As a matter of fact, I was in charge of this 6-foot by 12-foot plot. And before we got the electric tiller, which later that day I thought was the greatest invention ever made, I was taking a shovel and digging it into the 6-foot by 12-foot plot, turning over all of the soil, removing all of the rocks, while everybody else was making raised beds, bending over, drilling, dumping in dirt. And after we finally got everything tilled, all the rocks piled, then we brought in compost, which if you don't know what compost is because you have a black thumb like me, compost is this nutrient-rich soil that actually is enriched through the death of things, through the decomposition of animals or of cardboard or of banana peels or, yes, death repurposed to bring life, nutrient-rich life that once you plant the seeds inside of the soil with the compost over it, instead of it producing death, it produces corn stalks and tomato plants and melons. So at the end of the day, after we had tilled everything and we had put the compost down over the soil, we then moved into a phase that I found to be abhorrent, terrible, because it was a phase filled with watering and waiting, and watering and waiting, and watering, and it about drove me nuts. So I moved into a process of watering and ignoring, because I couldn't take checking every single day and seeing no fruit. When finally one day, my wife and I were out and we get a text message from our neighbor, and my screen on my phone was filled up with a sprout. A small little greenish, yellow, whitish sprout coming up from the ground. And I remember looking at it thinking, this was amazing. Although I also remember looking at it thinking, did we do it? Or did somebody else do it? It was this weird tension of knowing we had done something, and yet the fruit seemed to come out of nowhere. And I remember, though, welling up inside of me was not just confusion, but pride, deep pride, a protective pride, almost a pride like that you have as a parent for a child. And so I remember a day sitting at my kitchen table, looking outside at my proud new little children, all in the garden rows, when all of a sudden I see this little rabbit hopping and waiting, hopping and then going directly towards our garden. Oh man, I go shooting out the door and I started hissing, of all things. I started gnashing my teeth in order for this rabbit to get away. I was furious. It's like, get out of here. And if it wasn't a rabbit, next thing I knew, we were in this phase, we were having to fight all kinds of critters. If it wasn't a rabbit, it was a groundhog. If it wasn't a groundhog, it was a raccoon. If it wasn't a raccoon, it was this caterpillar bug thing that the only way we even knew it was there is because it kept leaving holes in the leaves. And all season, we've tried to figure out different ways to keep these animals away from stealing our fruit. And then finally, the first fruit came, and we grabbed a hold of it and took a bite, And there was a satisfaction that you simply do not get whenever you're just picking fruit from the pile at the grocery store. There is this powerful sense of accomplishment because you knew that this garden only came about because of our willingness to dig, our willingness to endure pain, our willingness to repurpose death, to creatively fend off enemies, to submit to the mystery of growth, and yes, to submit to patience. But you know as well as I do, I'm not just talking about gardening. I'm talking about transformation. You see, transformation comes through patience. I know it doesn't come as good news, but to fully engage transformation, we must endure pain, and we must endure it patiently, daily. Because you see, the empty tomb first was preceded by a crucifixion. You don't get an empty tomb without a cross. Which is the reason why I am so thankful that God's favorite word is with. With. The short little 4-letter preposition, with. It is a powerful word. And if I had to choose just one word to describe God, it would be this word, with. With is a word that communicates closeness. It's not like from. It's not even like the word near, because being near home after a long trip is a lot different than being at home with my family after a long trip. No, with has a power of closeness. With communicates union. And with is actually the word that Matthew chooses to bookend his entire gospel. Matthew begins his gospel in chapter 1, verse 23, with an angel talking to Joseph, telling him not just don't divorce Mary, but also telling him the identity of the child that Mary would give birth to. Chapter 1, verse 23, Matthew writes, "Behold, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. God with us. Matthew begins his gospel, begins the New Testament by reminding us that we serve the God of with. As a matter of fact, it's the exact same way that Matthew ends his gospel in chapter 28, verses 19 through 20. Jesus says, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you." And listen to this. "And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." It's easy to forget in this world caught between two trees that we serve the God of with. It's easy to forget on the path of transformation where you are enduring the pain and you are patiently moving forward step by step, choice by choice, permission by permission. It's easy to forget that we serve the God of with. The God who longs for us to simply live with Him. Which is actually something I struggle with. Simply being, living with Him. A couple of years ago, I was overwhelmed in every area of my heart. As a matter of fact, the only way I even know how to describe this is it was experiencing a dark night of the soul, where I struggled to sleep, I struggled to eat, I struggled even with the closeness. I'm an introvert and I'm not really touchy-feely. But during these couple of months, I even asked my wife not to sleep on her side with her back to me, but to lay on her back so that we could hold hands and fall asleep. Now, everybody had a diagnosis for me, which is frankly quite frustrating, Christians. Sometimes we just need you to be present, not to be the doctor. People were saying, oh, it's depression, oh, it's anxiety, oh, it's a midlife crisis. But I knew that the Lord was doing something in my heart. He was moving tectonic plates that were necessary for my path of transformation. Because one of the key factors that was happening is that it actually was producing fruit of the Spirit, even though it felt like I was dying. And during this time, during this wrestling, I felt the Lord giving me a very clear message. He said, Shane, you are really good at doing things for me, but you are terrible at doing things with me. Which hurt. I mean, I worked so hard to give the Lord good gifts. And I felt like in the moment that He was not appreciating what I was doing for Him, that He wasn't accepting my gifts. In some sense, I kind of felt the sting of Cain. But then the Spirit tenderly taught me that the Lord was not critiquing the product. He was communicating His heart for the process. You see, He was not displeased with what I was doing. He was trying to communicate His desire to do it with me, to be with me. You see, presence isn't a one-way street. For someone can be physically in our presence and yet not really be there. You know, it's like where you're talking to someone and the whole time they have their phone, and even though they are present, they're not present. What the Lord was asking me was for me to be with Him the way He is with me. I was taught this lesson even deeper by my daughter. We were up in the Northeast for 3 weeks for me to write this book that accompanies this video series, Between Two Trees. And while I was up there, I asked my daughter about a week in, I said, hey, how you doing? How's your heart? And she was honest. She just said, I want to go home. And she started crying. And man, I was proud of her. My daughter is a deep well, but sometimes she has a hard time allowing her emotions to come out in words. So I put my arm around her and I comforted her. And the next day she asked, hey, Daddy, can I go to work with you? When you go to write, can I go with you? And I said, absolutely, babe. So we were at work, and at one point we decided to take a break, and I was walking hand in hand with her through the city streets. And we came up to a crosswalk, and I just gently asked her, I said, so how are you doing? She said, I still want to go home. I said, okay. I said, well, tell me this. When are your best moments here? Like, when are the moments you feel most alive? And without even hesitating, she immediately said, when I'm with you or Mom one-on-one. I said, okay. I said, is that why you asked to come with me to work today? And she said, yeah. I said, all right. And we were crossing the street. I said, when are your worst moments here? She said, when you're at work, when Mom's helping the little kids, and when the boys are playing video games. And I said, okay. I said, but you're still with people, right? And then she said this brilliant insight. She says, yeah, but even when I'm around other people, I can still feel alone. You see, presence isn't a one-way street. Yes, God is with us. But in order for transformation to truly occur, we must also choose to be with Him. Because there is power in the word with. There is power to eradicate loneliness. There is power to carry on. There is power to realize that even though we are caught in a world between two trees, that we serve the God of with, that we can choose to be with also. I mean, our God longs for us even more than we at times long for Him. Our God is always present, even when we don't acknowledge that He is, or that we even refuse to give Him the gift of our presence or our conscious awareness. Our God pursues us even when we forget we are being pursued. I mean, think about creation. He created the heavens and the earth to be with us. And when the fall happened in Genesis 3, He parted the Red Sea to be with us. He gave us the law to be with us. He gave us the divine prophets to be with us. He became flesh, died on a cross, raised from the dead, and sent His Spirit, all to be with us. To be with you. To be with me. It's why I love the way the Bible ends. The Bible ends with God pouring His heart out for His longing to be near us. Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 4 says this. John says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. There was no longer any separation. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying," a voice coming from the throne of God saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now with the people. And He will dwell with them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. And there will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." You see, transformation is a celebration of the God of with. Transformation is a discipline of embracing the word with. Embracing this word with in a world caught between two trees. Transformation is the response of the longing of our hearts that we've had since we were children to return to the God in whose image we were created. And so I will end this video series the same way that God ends the Bible. With a simple word, but with a powerful word, almost as overwhelming as the word with. For the Bible ends with a simple invitation. An invitation through the word, come. Come. All you who are thirsty, come. And He will let you drink from the water of life, from the rivers of life that flow through the center of the city, that the tree of life stands on either side. Just simply come. Come to the cross of Jesus Christ so that you too can be experiencing an empty tomb daily. Walking through a tomb that is now in a garden, so that as you walk out, the wounds of your heart, the wounds on your wrist, the wounds on your side become scars from your own resurrection. Simply come. Come and embrace the Spirit. Come and unite with the God of with. Come to the tree between two trees and experience the healing that can only happen in Christ alone. Simply come.